Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the October 21st, 2024 meeting of the Park Hills Civic Association. My name is Alan Bowser. This evening, we're going to discuss the Attainable Housing Strategies initiative that's been recommended by the Montgomery County Planning Board, approved by the board, and has been transmitted to the Montgomery County Council. We're going to begin with just some little information about Park Hills. This PowerPoint will share some information, and hopefully we will be able to make this PowerPoint work. So first thing, for those of you who don't know, this is a map of the Park Hills Civic Association boundaries. We go from Piney Branch Road over to Greenbrier near Colesville Road. We're one of our boundaries is Sligo Creek, and on the other side it's Dale Drive. So I've always thought that it looked like a whale. This is our Civic Association territory. We've got the Silver Spring International Middle School and the Sligo Creek Elementary School in our boundaries. And of course, and importantly, we've got the Purple Line. Our website is listed below. It's parkhillscivic.com. We also have a Facebook page. Over the course of the last year, these are some of the things that we've been working on. We're longtime partners with the Montgomery County Department of Transportation, and we belong to their Adopt the Road program. We just had our Civic Association signs replaced. You'll see them along Sligo Creek in between Piney Branch Road and Wayne Avenue. Most recently, on the right-hand side, you can see that we had the Montgomery County Department of Transportation do crosswalk striping across Bonifant near Dale Drive. Now, all of our intersections from Wayne Avenue to Hartford are lined with crosswalk striping. I don't have to tell those of you in the neighborhood about what we've gone through with the Purple Line, but the good news is that Dale Drive is open at Wayne Avenue. For those of you who haven't been there, you can see that the tracks have been laid for the Purple Line going east and west on Wayne Avenue, and you can see all the plastic barriers that they're using to guide pedestrians across that intersection safely. Some of you may not have seen the beginnings of the station. That's the picture on the right-hand side. We will have a station for the light rail at Wayne Avenue and Dale Drive, and it's in the process of construction. One of the things that we do and do well is that we're good stewards of Sligo Creek. This is a picture of our neighbor, Chris Richardson, who was one of the stream stewards for Friends of Sligo Creek. And 3 times a year, the Civic Association meets in Sligo Creek near the tennis courts, which you can see in the background. We work with Friends of Sligo Creek. Recently, we worked with One Montgomery Green and the Anacostia Waterkeeper to keep the creek clean. We do this on as a day of service, Martin Luther King's birthday in January. We also do it around Earth Day in April, and then we do a cleanup in September. I think we just did it in October. We do one in the spring, one in the fall, and one for Martin Luther King's birthday. Wanted to have this slide because I wanted to say thank you to Chris Richardson, who is standing there on the right with the reddish color shirt. Wanted to give a shout out to another important neighbor of ours, Kelly McCullough. She's been instrumental in arranging for the regular ice cream socials that we've had. Here, the truck is on Mansfield near Nolte Park. It's been incredibly successful, and neighbors from throughout the region have come over to enjoy the treats, the shaved ice, and the ice cream from the Icy Dream. The Icy Dream truck is owned by a is owned by a Montgomery County a public school teacher, special ed teacher named Carol. So thank you, Carol, and thank you, Kelly, for what you do. Want to share these pictures. For the last 10 years or so, Park Hills has been involved in the Montgomery County Thanksgiving Parade. This is for a shout out to Cordell DeHaven. He's seen driving in the car. I think Cordell's been he's been our car guy for the last 15 years or so. And the Thanksgiving parade this year will be on November 19th, a little bit early, and we're asking neighbors to join us again. We've got a bunch of balloons, and we give out the balloons to kids in the parade on the parade route. Upcoming events, and then we'll get to the program at hand. Tomorrow night, we're going to do a Zoom. It's a presidential election information session. I'm going to be joined by our new Democratic precinct vice chair, Francois Stovall, who was just appointed by the Montgomery County Democratic Central Committee about 2 weeks ago. On Thursday night, we're going to have our quarterly meeting of Safe Silver Spring, also available on Zoom. At this meeting, we will be welcoming our new 3rd District Commander, Jason Kokinos, who has just taken over leadership at the 3rd District. I don't think I have to tell you that early voting starts on Thursday at 7 o'clock. The closest early voting center that we have is at the Silver Spring Civic Building. Election day is November 5th at 7 o'clock. And the parade is November 19th in downtown Silver Spring. What I wanted to do tonight is to see if this works. This looks like it works. We've got a couple of I want to talk about the Attainable Housing Strategies Initiative. This is a project of the Montgomery County Planning Department. They made recommendations. They submitted it to the Montgomery County Planning Board, and they've transmitted a final report in June, I believe, to the County Council. Right now, there is no legislation pending before the County Council. As some of you may know, the president of the Montgomery County Council, Andrew Friedson, and staff from the planning board went around the county and having listening sessions. They were well attended. There was one in Silver Spring, one in White Oak, one in Bethesda, on an online program with hundreds of people who wanted to listen to this information. This essentially goes to the issue of zoning in Montgomery County, where most of the housing is single family housing and single family neighborhoods. This first page that I'm showing is the website from the planning board, and I commend it to you for further research and information about the things that it's included in this report. There's lots of information here. I don't know if you can see my cursor. Lisa Gavani is the staff contact. She's been very generous with her time with our neighborhood, with community organizations around the county, explaining the nuts and bolts of this particular program. She's joined our neighborhood more than a year ago to preview this particular project. As you can go down, you can see that the final report is listed here. There's a link to the final report. There's a web map that we'll look at in a second. And there's lots of materials. There's YouTube. There's the timeline for their project, the nuts and bolts of what they're recommending to the county council. I hope that most of you know that the planning board is a creature of the Montgomery County Council, and it acts as its land use advisor. There are 5 members. Uh, there's a chair and four members. The chair is Artie Harris. I'm going to go through some of this information in detail. Um, if anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat. I don't know that we will answer them this evening, but we will have them and we will get answers and we will share them online. So just want to let you know, you can always Google Montgomery County Attainable Housing Strategies Initiative, and then you can have the benefit of all of this information. With the planning board, and what I'm going to do is let me just start here. This map is a map that the planning board has produced, which shows what parts of the county are going to be affected, come under the influence of the attainable housing strategies as proposed by the planning staff and recommended by the planning board. We're down here in this lower right-hand quadrant of Montgomery County. As you can see, all of it is yellow on this map. We are included in this strategy because we've got important transit routes that go through our neighborhoods. As you can see, there's a purple line, and that's very significant. Gary says he doesn't see the map. Alan, your slides are not advancing. All right, let's go back.
That was Diane.
We still see slide one.
You see slide one, all right, so that means I need to. How about that? Can you see something different now? You see a map?
Still your cover slide.
Let's see. Your screen sharing is paused.
We're having the same.
Yeah.
You want to tell them?
Where's everybody? There it is.
Can you see it now?
The map.
Okay. If there's any problems and you can't see something, please let me know. We'll figure it out. Like I said, so Gary, I only have two hands here. This is a map of the lower half of Montgomery County. In the lower right-hand part of the Montgomery County part, you can see the purple line. That's the purple line with the various dots, which are stations. We're also close to Route 29 in downtown Silver Spring. So we are in an area where the zoning is mostly single-family homes, and that's called, and we have R60 property types. It has to do with how many square feet on the lot. If you go to downtown, so if you go down to East Silver Spring, you're going to see some tall apartment buildings, but most of the area around us and throughout this yellow part of the county is single-family homes. And the planning staff has made recommendations about what could happen in these areas that are served by transit. We're in a priority housing district because we are very close to the purple line. For how the priority housing district are neighborhoods that are 1 mile from important transit routes. And so with the purple line going down Wayne Avenue, the property that's affected by this proposal is 1 mile in each direction of the purple line. It's also 1 mile either direction of University Boulevard, Colesville Road, and you'll see a list a little bit later. I put this to show you that we are definitely impacted by the housing strategies initiative and the recommendations that the planning board has made for the county council's consideration. What I wanted to do now is open up a document. Can you see this document? We
No.
we changed. All right. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to if I turn off that one, turn off that one. So this is a picture with a house on it. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Thank you, Jesus. So what I'm going to use is a PowerPoint presentation that the planning staff used when they went to White Oak. I'm using it because it's succinct, gives you an idea, and I'm trying to be balanced in this presentation. What I'm going to do at the outset is I'm going to go through this slide, this roadshow slide panel that the planning board used when they were talking to people in the White Oak community. That's sort of north of Trader Joe's, if you know, on Route 29. And then for a different perspective on this, I've got a memo from County Executive Mark Eldridge and his staff about the things that we need to be concerned about. So this was the listening session PowerPoint that planning staff shared with the White Oak people. Can you see this as it moves?
Yes.
Good, thank you. So this gives you a little background that shows that the county council asked the planning board to give them a report on how they could create more housing in Montgomery County. And the result of that effort was this Attainable Housing Strategies, which the staff presented to the board. The board made some recommendations, and then they sent it to the county council this summer. The original request was made in March 4th of 2021 when Tom Hucker was the council president. Hans Riemer was the chair of what was then called the Fed committee. One of the things that the planning board staff has learned is that we really do relish and cherish community engagement, and they've done a pretty good job of reaching out to the community about this particular proposal. As I said, Lisa Gavoni came to our meeting. I've hosted half dozen meetings with her and planning board staff in my role as the past president of the Montgomery County Civic Federation. They've been very generous with their time trying to explain what they were trying to do. There will be a link we'll have a link for this in the email that we send around. But they wanted to impress upon us that the goals of this were to increase, number one, increase opportunities to meet the county's diverse housing supply needs. Number two, to unravel the exclusionary aspects of the county's single-family residential zones, to diversify the county's communities by diversifying the county's housing stock, and to create more opportunities for home ownership. Why now? It started in 2021. We've just passed a new general plan. It was called Thrive Montgomery 2050. It talks about transit-oriented development. It talks about ways that we should look at organizing our community with environmental challenges, new transport challenges, jobs, and housing. And we've got a significant housing supply issue, and we've got an equity component, which is some of you know, Montgomery County has unfortunately a terrible segregationist history up until the 1960s when it was constitutionally made illegal. But a lot of the single family housing in Montgomery County is racially oriented, where mostly, at least down county, there are not many people of color who own homes in inside the Beltway and throughout the county. So the planning staff, planning council, planning board thought that they needed to come up with a pioneering, comprehensive housing strategy. They make the point that single-family houses are getting larger and they're getting more expensive. And one of the important things to take away is right now, I'm sure you know that you've seen McMansions all over the county. Right now, you have the right to build up a house to be a large structure on your property. So you can tear down and rebuild a house and make it much larger than the neighboring houses. But the picture on the right is duplex, and you don't have the right to do this. And what the county staff wants to do is they wanted to change that, and so that you would have the right to do more on your property. I mentioned earlier that we have these different size property zones in Montgomery County. The 200 zone is the largest. Most of them are up county. We are in R60 for the most part, R60, 6,000 square feet zone, and we are located, most of them are located sort of inside the Beltway. We're over here in this lower right-hand corner. And so say that to make this point, they make their recommendations to affect properties such as ours in Park Hills, Seven Oaks, Sligo Park Hills, Sligo Brandview, Indian Spring, not East Silver Spring so much because that's more of a downtown neighborhood. The planning board and Thrive designated these major highways as these arterials as growth corridors. And going forward over the next 30, 40, 50 years, they'd like to see growth concentrated along Connecticut Avenue, Georgia Avenue, Wisconsin, New Hampshire, Route 29, Veers Mill Road, where people would have access to buses, metro, light rail. We're in a priority housing district. The priority housing district is a straight line buffer of 1 mile from the red line, the purple line, and MARC stations, plus 500 feet from a Thrive Montgomery 2050 growth corridor. It's important for our neighborhood to know that we're a priority housing district and these recommendations apply to us. 1 mile straight line buffer from the purple line. When you look at it, most of all the property inside of the Beltway is either covered as the priority housing district or along a growth corridor. And now here's the meat of it. What the planning staff and the planning board recommended is to address housing by looking at it in three different scales. The small scale, which would apply to our neighborhoods, single family zone neighborhoods. By right, a homeowner would be able to build a duplex, a triplex, or a quadplex in our neighborhoods. The medium scale, larger apartment buildings, you can sort of get a sense of there's some more description below, but you can get a sense of the massing that small scale is in our neighborhoods, medium scale along major arterials, and large scale would be big apartment buildings. And I want to concentrate on small scale, right? So this is our neighborhood here. What the planning board has recommended is that by right, a homeowner would be able to build a duplex, triplex, or quadplex that are the similar size of an existing building. These could be 2 to 2.5 stories tall. Right now, the thinking is that if you were going to build a duplex, triplex, or quadplex, it would have to be in the same footprint of the houses that we have now. So if you can imagine your single family house divided in two, that would be a duplex. Divided in three, a triplex. 4 units, a quadplex. That's the existing proposal right now, to not change the footprint of how big these new houses would be. There's a lot of conversations about whether or not if that's going to be practical. Where are these small scale houses going to be? They're going to be in the R40, R60, and R90 zones. As it says right there, duplexes and triplexes everywhere, and quadplexes in the priority housing districts. And as I mentioned before, we're in a priority housing district. So the proposal is that in our neighborhoods, a homeowner would be able to build a duplex, triplex, or quadplex without getting a lot of permissions either. All they would have to do is go to the Department of Permitting Services and get a permit for construction, and they would be able to do that without any conversations and discussions with neighbors. As you can see on the right hand of this column, by right on a recorded lot, you'd have to own the property, and you just get a building permit. One of the things that hasn't been sorted out yet is they say, and they haven't done this yet, that these new buildings, these new structures, the duplexes, the triplexes, and quadplexes would have to look a certain way. They'd have to conform to the general design in a neighborhood. So they wouldn't be too high, they wouldn't be too narrow. There would be a book, and a person who wanted to build on their property would go to this pattern book, and they would scroll through the book, and they would be able to pick a design. We haven't seen the pattern book yet. It doesn't exist. Standards says no changes proposed for building height, setbacks, and lot coverage. They are recommending some reductions in on-site vehicle parking. And how would they implement this? They would implement this, at least the recommendation is, by a zoning text amendment. This practice would have the county council acting as the land use authority in Montgomery County, pass a bill that would comprehensively change all the zoning in Montgomery County. Typically, what we've done up until now is we have master plans, and they go neighborhood by neighborhood, and they come to charrettes, they have conversations with staff, they talk about what they'd like to see in the neighborhood, more parks, ask questions about infrastructure, about schools. This is not that. This would be a wand that would change the zoning all around the county by a law. Some people are not pleased about that. Here's their discussion about the pattern book, and this is about it. It basically shows that this is what the massing on a typical R60 site would look like, and you would be able to do just about anything you want inside this particular footprint. With traditional setbacks, sidelines, frontage area. This is the pattern book concept, and as I said, we have not seen that yet. The medium scale, well, this is important to us because as we are located transit from the purple line, you could expect that somebody might be interested in developing a series of townhouses, stacked flats, or small apartments along Wayne Avenue, along the purple line. And we're in the R60 zone, within 50 feet of a Thrive Montgomery growth corridor, or land identified for a floating zone or medium scale in a master plan. If somebody wanted to build something like this, if they wanted to put in more units at a particular place, um, they could design it so you have more units. One of the things is if somebody wants to do one of these apartment buildings, how much affordable housing would be in it. Right now there's a rule that says that if you build a big enough structure, you need to have moderately priced dwelling units in there, which are supposed to be affordable for people who are low to moderate income. And then finally, the large scale. These are what we typically see along Georgia Avenue, in Rockville, in Bethesda. Large apartment buildings with all the amenities that come with that, like we have in downtown Silver Spring, like they're building near the Silver Spring metro station. What else is on this little fact sheet here? One of the moves in sort of environmental planning and sustainability is they'd like people to not drive as much. They'd like people to take transit, to take buses, use electric vehicles. They would reduce the amount of parking that was required when somebody builds a new structure. And as I mentioned before, the county council and the planning board had a series of listening sessions. This PowerPoint presentation is from September 17th at White Oak. There were other meetings in Germantown, Bethesda, and an online virtual one on October 2nd, where hundreds of people signed up, and they didn't let everybody in because they just couldn't handle the capacity. Planning board has been doing some lecture series to further educate the staff and the public about upzoning and smart growth throughout the country. And we'll send around this information about where you can contact the planning board or look online for some of their resources. 737. So that's it. Generally, the planning board has made a recommendation about changing land use in Montgomery County by having a small, medium, and large scale proposal for different types of neighborhoods, depending on their proximity to transit. Because of the Purple Line, our East Silver Spring neighborhoods, Seven Oaks, Park Hills, Sligo Brandview, maybe Indian Springs, Sligo Park Hills, will all be affected if this passes. Let me go to what the county executive has said. I think you probably understand, like at many of these issues that come up, there are two camps, right? There are people who are 100% in favor of it. There are people who are 100% opposed to it. I'm trying to provide information on both sides so people can do further research and make their own judgment. Reach out to the county council, to the county executive, and express their opinion. Some of these issues can be really divisive. We had divisive conversations around the initial planning of the Purple Line. We've had divisive conversations about the general plan that the county council passed, 2 years ago, the Thrive Montgomery 2050. And this is no different. There are armed camps on both sides of this housing issue. And I guess some of these issues are identified in this memo that the county executive staff produced and shared with the public. Attainable housing strategies, analysis of what, how, where, why, and next steps. A lot of it's the background information that I summarized early on that county council asked for this report from the planning board. They've sent it to the county council, and the county council is beginning to digest what they've heard in the listening sessions. But let's go right down to what the county executive has said about this project. And I guess first and foremost, this is the county executive's analysis. What the Attainable Housing Strategies doesn't do, it doesn't address housing affordability. In fact, the report is clear that these new households that would be developed under that three-tier strategy would be market rate housing. So what we've seen is they use an example in Bethesda where somebody, these numbers are going to be off. I'm sort of making them off, making this up, where somebody sold a property for $1.2 million and they wanted to construct a triplex there. The new units that were developed were not $400,000 a piece. They were like $1.5 million a piece. So the new units were not affordable. There were more units, and for the people who could pay $1.5 million, they would be able to buy a house that wasn't there. And from the perspective of the planning board and some of the members of planning council, the fact that there's one more additional unit that somebody could buy, that's attainable housing. So this is not going to address the need of teachers, firefighters, police officers, waiters, bus drivers, county employees who want to live in Montgomery County and live close to work. One of the things I do is advocacy for Montgomery County Police. I was horrified to hear that some of our police officers, they can't afford to live in the county, so some of them are commuting from Harper's Ferry and Gettysburg and Delaware every day. They drive down to Montgomery County, they do work, and then they go back home. So we've known for a long time that teachers can't afford to live here, and it's a problem. This does not address the question of housing affordability for first responders and teachers and people who can't afford to spend $1.5 million for a house. And this is
Alan, this is Joanne Ott. I'm on Mansfield. I just want to say that was probably I was at the Silver Spring listening session, and aside from environmental and things like that, the number one concern was that it's couched as, more people, the racial component, and that it doesn't create an opportunity for people to be able to live here, the firefighters, the teachers, and so that no one else can figure out what the benefit is if you're just creating, much more expensive housing.
Exactly, and that's the complaint, the concern that they heard as they went around the county. This doesn't address the people who the tens of thousands of people who are going to move to Montgomery County over the next 20, 25 years who can't afford $1.5 million. And, personally, I've always thought that was a failure of county government, the planning board, the county council, the executive, not to have a hard conversation about where those resources are going to come. And we have done some interesting things with the Housing Opportunities Commission, where they're now be able to mobilize some funding for rental properties and some condos. But for foremost in this conversation, this is not affordable housing, and people would like to see more affordable housing. If you wanted to sell your house now, you could probably, in our neighborhoods, what you get $800,000, $900,000 to sell your house. But where are you going to move to? There are no places that you can move to nearby that are that expensive as you want to downsize. This is the point that the county executive has made. It does not address the need for additional opportunities for home ownership for low-income households. It does not address concerns that the recommendations may create incentives for outside real estate speculators to purchase single-family homes for redevelopment. And we've already heard over the course of, since the pandemic that people haven't, there's cash offers to buy houses that are for sale, and that young couples that want to buy into their neighborhood or get outbid by outside investors. No conversation in this document about what you could do to rein that in or to stop outside investors from speculating on property. In the place that we did some research, which was Minneapolis. Minneapolis was one of the first places to do one of these upzoning strategies, these missing middle strategies. A lot of the new properties that were developed were not for home ownership, they were for rentals. And the people who didn't live in the state, didn't live in the city, didn't really maintain the property. So there were some issues there. There's always some questions about whether or not the Council of Government, COG, some of you have heard of COG, the Council of Government's estimates or housing targets, how realistic they are. And so there's going to be a big conversation about how many people are expected to come, how much housing is needed. The county executive has argued that we already have enough housing, which is permitted in Montgomery, to take all the newcomers who are coming in. The master plans have set aside areas for middle income housing, for rental housing, and that we don't need this plan. I mean, and there is the crux of the discussion and disagreement between the planning staff, board, housing advocates, and the county executive. He says we've already got this, and this particular plan doesn't really do anything. Importantly, and this is one that Joe just mentioned, that this attainable housing study does not address the environmental consequences of increased land coverage from the larger building footprints of higher density development, resulting in more imperviousness, hard surfaces, stormwater runoff, and the loss of tree cover. And I think those of us in our neighborhood, Park Hills, Seven Oaks, were really sensitive to the loss of tree canopy as we saw the development of the Purple Line and what happened on Wayne Avenue, where the loss of tree canopy was 3 or 4 or 5 times more than we were led to believe when this first hit the drawing boards back in the 2006, 2007 period when we first saw the plans. County executive staff writes it does not consider its effect on sprawl. And then it comes up with these priority housing districts, and we are in one. Within 1 mile from the red and purple lines, some MARC stations. And when I started reading this document, I wondered why it was 1 mile, because it's a distance which was, here it says it's twice the half-mile buffer that the Federal Department of Transportation uses when they want to specify how far somebody should walk or run to a bus station or to a transit line. So 1 mile struck me as very curious. And the county executive has identified that as an issue as well. Here he writes, it's countywide rezoning of 4 residential single-family detached zones, almost 134,000 properties, upends the master plan process which is geared to looking at each community carefully and includes a process for public review and engagement. By doing a comprehensive ZTA, there would be less opportunity or no opportunity for public review engagement. There would be some public hearings that the county house council would probably have to have, but our experience with Thrive is that lots of people wanted to talk and they didn't have an opportunity. Many of them did not have an opportunity to do that. The report does not explain how existing zoning capacity already in place through approved and adopted master plans factors into meeting the housing targets, how the 30,000 plus units in the county's development pipeline approved but not built factor into meeting those targets. These projects are approved, planned, ready for construction. They only need to pull the permits, and developers have not been pulling the permits on these properties that they've sought approval for. It does not address the loss of trees on properties that redevelop. And trees are important for addressing climate change and for absorbing water to lessen stormwater runoff and flooding. Does not address road capacity needs for the additional cars that would likely come from the additional households. It does not address the effect of reduced parking requirements instead of relying on street parking to accommodate additional households, many of which could be built along residential streets not wide enough to accommodate both through traffic and cars parked on each side. We'll come to the questions in a second. I live on Deerfield Avenue. Some of you may know where that is, sort of 2 blocks off of Wayne Avenue. The first street is Bonifant. The next one is Deerfield. We've got no sidewalks, a few driveways. And when fire and rescue equipment comes down, it's quite a squeeze for them to get through to the cul-de-sac where we live. And let me just mention these unintended consequences. Unintended consequences. Master plans adopted over the past several years have zoned a significant amount of additional housing density near transit. Much of this zone capacity remains unbuilt today, yet this study recommends newer, denser market rate housing away from the downtown centers. They acknowledge the conversion of individual properties from single family homes to other housing types is a heavy lift for the homeowner, and suggesting that developers could come in and make offers for property, and people would take the offer and leave the community. This suggests the possibility of investor-driven redevelopment is more likely, potentially affecting the county's rental housing market. Upzoning increases land values, which in turn raises property taxes, something else which is not dealt with at all in this particular study. Gentrification can occur in neighborhoods where housing is currently affordable as higher income residents move into new market rate housing. Some renters may be displaced. Currently, single family housing in the county counts for more than 2/3 of the family size rental units. And then skipping down to the end here, larger footprints on redeveloped lots means increases in impervious land coverage, more stormwater runoff, and potential for increased flooding. This could be exacerbated by the loss of trees removed during redevelopment in areas where there are few places to replace them. So this is basically the county executive's argument that there are issues that need to be discussed and worked through with the planning board's final report on attainable housing strategies. And I commend them to your attention. We're a smart community. I think all of you can look at these resources and make your own decisions and communicate them to the county council. We'll be sending around a note with the email addresses of all the county council members, all the links to the documents that I've showed this evening and other ones that are helpful. And as I said at the outset, the county council doesn't have a plan before it to implement the Attainable Housing Strategy. And I suspect that there'll be considerable changes to what the planning board recommended. We had a group of our neighbors two Sundays ago, had a conversation in somebody's house, and they thought that just the idea of having a fourplex, a quadplex in the neighborhood was sort of a bridge too far, and that they'd like to hear about duplexes, have a conversation about that, conversation about triplexes, but the quadplexes were too far. And right now, there's no area in our community that would be safe from having a quadplex development in the streets in that and next door from us. So I am going to stop the share. And I'm going to stop the recording.